I picked up the signal on a maintenance band nobody monitors anymore, 3 hops off our actual course, and I almost let it go. That's the part I still turn over. Almost. I'm the ranking medical officer aboard the Amity Reach, a Confederated Relief Corps hospital ship built for exactly one purpose. Get to the wounded, treat what can be treated, ferry the rest home. We were running empty racks back from a cordon evacuation, nothing urgent, when our comms officer, a quiet kid named Pharaoh, flagged an automated ping, repeating on a frequency reserved for equipment failures. Not a distress call, a maintenance alert, the kind a station sends when a filtration unit clogs, not when a station is dying. Except this one had been repeating for 181 days. We diverted without asking permission, because asking would have taken longer than getting there, and Pharaoh's read on the signal's decay curve said we didn't have much slack left either way. The station was called the Vantage Hold, a forward garrison post belonging to the Scarn Dominion, and when we came alongside it, I understood immediately why nobody had come. Half its hull plating had peeled away in some engagement long since over. Its running lights were dead. The only thing still working, as far as we could tell from the outside, was that one stubborn maintenance transmitter, broadcasting its quiet complaint into the dark, long after everyone had stopped listening for it. We hailed, nothing for 11 minutes. Then a voice, flat and controlled, telling us in careful trade tongue that the Vantage Hold had been classified non-recoverable by Dominion Fleet Command 14 months prior, that further resource allocation to the post was denied, and that we should proceed to our original heading. I have read a lot of refusals in my career. That was the first one that sounded like an apology. I told them we weren't asking permission to help. I told them we were already docking. There were 163 of them left, out of a garrison that had held over 600. Scarn, scaled, low-slung, built heavy through the shoulders for a homeworld with harder gravity than ours, twin-hearted, cold-blooded enough that half the station's remaining power was going to keeping the barracks decks above freezing. Their commander met us at the airlock personally, which I later learned was its own kind of statement. Thesserin Vor, old for a soldier, scarred along one jaw where the scale plating had never grown back properly, and utterly unwilling to look surprised by anything we did. Behind her, the corridor lighting ran on a rotating pattern I didn't understand at first. Every third fixture dark, every second panel dimmed, until Carr explained later that it wasn't active rationing anymore, it was habit. They had been rationing so long that full light now felt wasteful, even on the days the reactor could have spared it. That one detail told me more about the last 14 months than any casualty report could have. She did not weep. I want to be clear about that, because I've heard how these stories get told, and I won't tell it that way. She looked at my medical team unloading crates onto her ruined landing deck, with an expression I can only describe as arithmetic, like she was recalculating, in real time, how much this was going to cost her when we eventually left, because everyone always eventually left. We told her we weren't leaving on a schedule. We told her we were staying until the work was done. It took us 6 weeks. The first 10 days were triage, the kind of triage that doesn't discriminate between soldier and technician and cook, because on a garrison that size, everyone had been doing 3 jobs since the crews thinned out. Radiation sickness from a cracked containment seal, nobody had the parts to fix. Malnutrition, because the hydroponics bay had lost 2 of its 4 grow lattices, and nobody had told Fleet Command, since Fleet Command had already stopped listening. A dozen untreated fractures that had healed wrong, because their one remaining combat medic, a young Scarn named Osuin Carr, had been rationing anesthetic for over a year, and setting bones the hard way to save it for the ones who needed it more. I worked next to Carr for 6 weeks. I taught him things. He taught me more, how Scarn blood carries oxygen differently at altitude, how their molt cycles leave them defenseless for 11 days a year, and why the old design of their barracks put the molting bunks at the center of the station, behind everyone else, a design nobody had thought to rebuild, because rebuilding costs more than nobody spending money on people who've already been written off. There was a night, about 3 weeks in, when a supply technician named Ossier Delk went into arrest on my table, from a heart failure neither of my 2 Scarn physiology references had prepared me for. Scarn run twin hearts in series, not parallel, and when the second one fails, it fails silently, no warning rhythm at all, just a stop. KR caught it before I did. He had seen it twice before and lost both. This time we did not. I remember him afterward, sitting on an equipment crate with his hands still shaking, saying nothing for a long while, and then telling me, very quietly, that he had stopped letting himself hope for a night like this one about 8 months back. It cost less, he said, to stop hoping. I did not have an answer for that. I still do not, except that I hope he never has to reach for that particular arithmetic again. We didn't just treat them. That's the part that took the longest for Thesarin Vor to believe was actually happening. Our engineers pulled the Amity Reach's own spare grow lattices and installed them in the hydroponics bay, because a hospital ship carries redundancy it rarely needs, and this was as good a use as any. We patched the hull breaches with material we'd been holding for our own refit. We left them 2 full months of medical supply beyond what they'd need before any Dominion resupply might reconsider the Vantage hold worth the fuel. Verfor asked me, on the 4th week, why we were doing all of it. The food, the hull, the parts, when all we'd been asked to answer was a maintenance chirp on a dead channel. I told her the truth, which was that we hadn't been asked for any of it. Nobody had asked. That was rather the point. She was quiet a long time after that. Skarn don't cry. Not the way humans mean it. Their tear ducts serve a different function, something to do with regulating eye pressure at depth pressures their ancestors used to dive to. But she sat with her hands flat on the table between us, very still, in a way I'd come to recognize by then as the closest thing to it. On the day we finally undocked, the entire garrison came out onto what was left of the landing deck to see us off. Not ordered to, I checked. Verfor hadn't given the order. They just came. All 163 of them who were left, standing in the cold in their patched-together dress uniforms, watching our ramp retract. I was on the observation deck when it closed, and I watched them through the viewport until the Vantage hold fell away behind us into the dark. 4 at the front of that ragged formation, one hand raised. Not quite a salute, not quite anything I had a name for. I've carried that image longer than I've carried most of the medicine I learned that year. A station that had been marked beyond saving, standing at attention for a ship that never should have found them at all. We logged the visit as a resupply and medical support operation. 6 weeks, 163 treated. That's what the official record says. It doesn't say that a filtration alert nobody was required to answer turned into the longest continuous care rotation I've run in 11 years of service, or that Thesarin Vor sends a data packet through 3 relay stations every 90 days now, unprompted, just to report that the hydroponics bay is holding steady. Fleet Command still lists the Vantage hold as non-recoverable. I have stopped correcting the file. Some things do not need the paperwork to catch up. I think about the arithmetic Vor did on that first day, standing on her ruined landing deck watching us unload crates she assumed we would eventually take back. I think about how long it must take a commander to stop running that calculation, to stop pricing out the cost of hope against the certainty of being left again. I do not know if she has stopped entirely, even now. Her packets still arrive precisely every 90 days, never late, never early, as if punctuality itself were a kind of proof. I have come to understand that as its own quiet form of trust, she keeps sending the numbers because some part of her still expects, on one of these cycles, for no one to answer back. We always do. I know what I saw on that landing deck, and I know what the ramp looked like closing on all 163 of them standing there in the cold, in their patched dress uniforms. And some days, that image is worth more to me than any citation I will ever be handed. A station the galaxy had already filed away as a loss, standing at attention for a ship that was never required to find them at all.